Welcome to the Freeport High School Class of 2021 Postgraduate Planning Zoom webinar, hosted by Ms. Pierce, Ms. Clark, and Ms. Rogg. During this webinar, we will give an overview of postgraduate considerations and will predominantly focus on the college planning and application process. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We know this is probably not how you envisioned your senior year of high school. We know that the coronavirus has seriously impacted all elements of your life. Please know we are here to address how COVID might affect your postgraduate planning. So what are your postgraduate plans? Some of you might be thinking college. Others of you might be thinking of going to a trade school or enrolling in the military or a technical college. And more of you might be considering employment. So we're wondering, how far along are you in this process? Some of you might be just starting the path, and others of you might be halfway up the mountain or all the way at the top. We are here to help you with what supports might still be helpful. So it's time to get your ducks in a row. This is a great time to reflect on these questions. Are you planning to go straight to a job or career? Are you hoping to enroll in a certification program? Are you planning to take a gap year? Are you planning to go into the military? Your guidance counselor can help you with any of these things. We can help you research and understand the certification process, research careers and find your strengths using our Naviance program, research and locate gap year programs, or help you with questions about enlisting in one of the armed forces. For some of others of you, it might be a two-year community college that's in your future. Guidance can also help you with this process. We can help figure out whether you need placement testing, where and when to take this placement testing, or request a transcript via our Google form. And for some of you, you might be thinking about a four-year school. The first thing we want to address is some of your questions about how COVID-19 might have changed things. There are questions about what you might do about standardized testing. You might be wondering about your grades and what your transcript will look like, about the impact of a lack of high school involvement in extracurriculars this last spring or even this fall, wondering how you choose colleges when you can't visit, and some of you might be wondering about this year's deferrals and how they affect admission numbers. Please be rest assured you are not alone. Every single high school junior in this country has been affected by COVID-19. And to give a few more reassurances, as we've talked to many colleges over the last few months, we've learned that colleges are going to continue to take a holistic approach when looking at college applications. Realize that the grades from last spring are just one piece of the puzzle. Many colleges are helping students by going test optional, and the Common App has added a question to address how COVID-19 might have affected you. Please also know that many colleges are accounting for deferrals, and they're going to adjust on their end, most likely not affecting their admission decisions.
So let's start with talking about how you actually choose colleges to apply to. It's a two-step process, and that first step is researching colleges. So we just want to remind you it's important to keep an open mind and, get on your computer and start doing a little searching. There's a lot of things to consider for choosing a college. You may want to consider the location, the size, the different extracurriculars they may offer, diversity, distance from home, different programs, faculty ratios. There are so many things to consider when you're choosing a school. These are some great resources for you to go through some of those things. Many of them will allow you to put in what your preferences are, or maybe what your preferences aren't. The College Board, College Confidential, College Data, and Niche are very popular ones with the counselors and with our students. There's also some new college research apps that some of our students have been using. College Hunch, College Fair, and PassSource. Some of these are helpful with information about admission. Sometimes it's information about financial information. There's lots of different things that you can find now. And without being able to go onto campuses, there's lots of different college videos that are available, whether it's YouTube. Individual college websites have wonderful videos. And there's some other places as well. There's a wonderful program called Campus Reel, where students will actually take you around their campus, separate from the one that is put out by the college. And sometimes that gives students the opportunity to see what the college looks like directly from a student perspective. Which leads me to the second step, which is actually visiting the schools and getting onto campus, which is really challenging. So again, you're going to rely heavily on those videos at this point. If a school is still allowing students to take a college tour, or if they're even doing virtual sessions, you would go to their website, and you can do that just by using Google. You can Google information session at the school, and that information will come right to you. Many of them are offering scheduled times for online tours. And then you can also Google to see what times those are happening in general. It's helpful for students to create a balanced list when they're looking at colleges. We talk about reach schools, which are those long shots. Maybe they're pushing you. Maybe it's schools that your GPA, and if you have test scores, maybe just a little bit lower than the average, but you're within enough that maybe, just maybe, it might work out for you because they may look at something else within your application package. A good match, or those just right schools, are those that your GPA is right in that mid 50th percentile from students that are attending that school. Your scores are right in the zone. And then there's those sure thing safety schools. And sometimes it's not even just about GPA, it's also about it being a financial safety school, because the reality is that a lot of these schools are expensive. And so it's a good plan to have a financial safety included in that balance list so that you know you can afford to go. You want to pay attention to the freshman class profiles. Those are released every year and updated. And again, you can Google that mid 50th percentile for both standardized testing and for GPA. We did include a chart in your folder that were given to students back in the spring. And so this is a great time to pull those out and organize the schools that you're looking at. This is the college application checklist. And this includes the name of the schools and all of the information that you're going to be hopefully putting together so that you can keep track of the schools you're applying to, if they're using the Common App, what tests are required, and the score range.
Part 2, as we segue into the next step, I think it's important to let everybody know and remind you that this is a recording. You can stop here and you can come back anytime you want if you feel like you've had enough information for today. And the good news is that you can go back. You can go again and again and review this as often as you need to. And you don't need to take it all in at one time. This is the beautiful thing that sometimes this COVID experience brings us. So part 2 is the overview of the application process. The components of the application, the transcript is the most important piece of everything. Schools want to know what classes you took, how rigorous were they, and how well did you do in the classes. They will be looking at your college essay for sure. That sometimes tends to be one of the most stressful pieces for students because it's really hard to write about yourself. We have fabulous English teachers that work to support kids with this. The SAT or ACT, these are exams that most schools are waiving for students, but we are offering some opportunities for seniors to take the SAT both in September and October. There are weekend test dates that you can take the SAT, and makes sense to take it at least once if you can. Teacher recommendations, students will be asking two academic teachers for recommendations that they will support their whole application components. And then the counselor recommendation is standard. I always tell students, you don't even have to ask me. You don't have to invite us. We just do it automatically. And so we tend to have an overview recommendation letter, kind of highlighting the student as a whole person. And then there's the financial aid piece. That tends to come after the application pieces are done. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail, but this is a really important piece to not miss. That FAFSA is that free application for federal student aid, and it will be important to make sure that you get that filed. And again, I think we will be talking about that a little bit later in detail. One thing you want to make sure of is that for each college that you're applying to, you check the college directly. The nice thing is that you can just Google search admission requirements and then name the college, and then you will be directed right to a page. The page for each school might look a little bit different, but it has similar information for what they require you to have. Some schools like St. Lawrence here actually require a certain number of years of courses, and other requirements might, I don't even know what other requirements right off the top of my head would be. Portfolios, I guess, if you were applying to art school, sometimes you have to submit a portfolio. Music, you have to have auditions. So separate things like that will always be listed on this page. This is just an example of our new updated transcript. Again, we are showing the semester 1 and semester 2 grades for every class, the final average, and then new this year is the habits of work, along with the credits. So there are common application essay prompts that students can choose. There's always the open-ended, write about whatever you want. So that is something that most students will do. Some students have been wondering about, do I write about COVID? And you know, that does depend. One message I would give you all was you just basically want to avoid cliche topics. You want it to be really personal and not general, because you want admissions counselors to get to know you a little bit. Standardized testing, the fun piece. This is what students didn't get to take the SAT last spring, but there are some opportunities this fall. Most schools are not requiring these. Check again that admission page to see what the requirements are for each school. Sometimes schools in the past have required SAT subject tests. This is different than the regular SAT exam. There's specialty in different subjects like mathematics or science. Mostly just the super competitive schools are the ones that require this. No other schools do. And then the ACT. Colleges will take the SAT or the ACT. Both are equally weighted. It doesn't matter to them. Most of our students though do take the SAT. So how do you know? Again, you want to check each school's website for information on those requirements. I think I mentioned that not all schools, but most have gone test optional for this year. And we still are recommending that you plan to take at least one SAT exam this fall. So why take it if it's not something that's required? Well, sometimes students apply to programs that are really competitive, such as nursing, engineering, and they might require you to submit SAT scores. And if your scores are good, I would submit them anyway, because sometimes you can get more money for merit scholarships. So it always makes sense to try it and just see how you do. So the COVID SAT testing schedule has been a little bit different. The upcoming SAT dates are September 26th, October 3rd, November 7th, and then there's another date there, but it's blocked, so I think you can see it. You register directly through the College Board, right in with your College Board website, your College Board account. And if you need a fee waiver, please contact your school counselor. Anybody who qualifies for free or reduced lunch will qualify for a fee waiver, and we are happy to help you out here. Just reach out to us by email and we'll be happy to help you with that. So what about the ACT? This was that other exam that colleges will accept. This test kind of started in the Midwest and has gained popularity. It actually gained so much popularity that the SAT completely transformed their exam to mirror the ACT exam. So with that being said, most students do not take the ACT. It's just another test for them to take. And we have experience with the PSAT here. Students that are in their senior year did take the PSAT twice, sophomore year and then junior fall, fortunately. So there is some good practice underneath that SAT, and it's an option for students who aren't happy with their scores. They could try the ACT, but it's nothing we generally recommend. So test planning considerations, just make sure to look at your deadlines for the colleges that you're applying to when your applications are due. A lot of times students wonder about, well, what if the application is due November 15th, but I don't even take the test until beginning of December. So what will I do? When will I get my scores back? So the College Board, you can have them send your scores directly to the colleges. And usually what they'll do is if they want to view your scores, they will just wait to review your file until your scores come in through the College Board. So basically the general recommendation is to take the SAT as early as you possibly can. And don't forget to sign up for Khan Academy's free SAT prep course. This is through your College Board account. It's a great way to just practice for free, even if you get on and just do an hour. My guess is that it might help you with a couple questions that you're asked. So any gains you can get are worth the effort.
So moving on to other elements of the application, as Ms. Rogg mentioned, that for teacher recommendations, most colleges will require 1 to 2 teacher recommendations, and preferably they want someone who's more recent. And colleges have mentioned it's okay if some of your teachers have been virtual teachers, you can definitely have them do recommendations as well. Pay attention to each college website for specifics on how many recommendations you need. But again, most students, we tell them to ask 2 teachers to provide recommendations. And those you'll do directly through the Common App, which Ms. Clark will show you all a little bit later. And again, as Ms. Rogg also mentioned, we as your school counselors will automatically send a letter to each school. And we will ask that both you and a guardian fill out a questionnaire sometime later this month or in October to help us with those letters. And this is just the example of the senior questionnaire. Please check your email coming up. We will also have this questionnaire posted on our new college Google Classroom. And these questions are just a great way for us to add a little bit more depth to your letters. And typically these help us make your letters even better. And we also want to encourage your parents to fill out a questionnaire. Please encourage your parent to do this. They will also get a separate email with this questionnaire, and we'll also post it in the announcements. And again, your parents know you best, and sometimes their questionnaires give us some really great information to add a lot of depth to your letters. So this is a big piece, financial aid. This is another component of your application. It's actually, you do a separate financial aid application to each school. And we recommend that maybe you do a little bit of research ahead of time. We have the fortune of having Bill Smith, who is a financial aid expert, give a webinar. He did one last spring, and your link to that can be found on the Google Classroom and on our guidance department website. He does a fantastic overview of financial aid for college. It's a great webinar for your parents to watch, for you to watch. We also have a great resource here in Maine called Fame Maine, and they give a whole host of resources on their website. So go check them out if you're feeling like you need a little bit more information about financial aid. And finally, a lot of people wonder, how much will this college cost? You'll often see a sticker price that seems really huge, but we also find that many students don't pay the actual sticker price. Each college website by law has to have a net price calculator. Typically, you can find that tool on the financial aid website for each college. So simply go there, and each college will ask you for information, and sometimes they'll give you a number of what they think that particular school will end up costing you. So as I mentioned, applying for financial aid is a separate process. You will not be applying for financial aid through the Common App, but you will do it through a separate series of places. The FAFSA, which is completed by students and parents, is the financial aid document that goes to all schools. There's another more in-depth financial aid process that's known as the CSS profile. This is something that is only required for schools that require it, and it's typically some of your higher tiered schools. If you go to the College Board, which is where you fill out the financial aid CSS profile, you can click on the link there to fill that out. Again, pay particular attention to each school's financial aid website to see if it's required. Many schools do not require this. I think it's somewhere in the number of about 250 schools out of over 3,000 schools in the United States actually require this profile. So again, in number 3, it says just make sure you're just checking each school's individual financial aid website for specifics. They also will include information on school grants and merit aid. So this is really important to pay attention to. Here's just another link to show one particular financial aid page. And again, you can just use Google and say St. Lawrence University financial aid page, and you actually will get the link to go directly to the site. Once you're in the site, you can dig deeper. And in the case of this particular slide, I wanted to show you where you can look up scholarships and academic merit scholarships. This is where you get information as to whether or not scholarships will happen automatically with your application, or sometimes you need to send in a separate application. So you really want to pay attention to some of these websites and links. And again, read the fine print. In this case, for Gettysburg, they have some scholarships where you're automatically considered just with your application. However, in the case, if you notice the star, the Eisenhower Scholarship requires a separate application, and they give you a link to go to that application. So, extracurriculars. This is another big piece to the college application. And you're all probably wondering, what about COVID and extracurriculars? No school is going to dock you for not having extracurriculars last spring and probably for this fall. A lot of schools have canceled extracurriculars and you don't have the same access to be able to do what you used to do. What schools want to know is what you do with your time. So this could be a great opportunity to take up a new hobby, do some sort of independent study. It really depends. Everybody's very different. Colleges, again, just want to know what you do with your time, and they want students to be authentic with what they do with their time. So please think about what's meaningful for you and spend your time engaged in that behavior. And finally, demonstrating interest. Demonstrated interest is how colleges assess how interested a student is in attending their school. Many colleges, and especially this year, when they're not considering test scores as part of the equation, this could become a very important part of the admissions process. They want to know, is the student really interested in coming here or not? There are several ways to demonstrate interest. First, a very easy way is to complete an online information form. Each school, mostly you'll find them on the home screen for each school, they'll have a join our mailing list link, and you simply put in your name and some of your information, and then that school will be able to reach out to you. They'll send you emails and more information, and they're going to gauge how interested are you in coming to their school through this. Other ways to demonstrate interest are doing things like registering for an open house and attending that school's open house. Again, these are going to be virtual, but they still are hosting many of these sessions. They have information sessions, and a lot of schools have social media accounts. And so you can connect with them via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. They'll have social media accounts on almost any platform out there. These social media sites are a great way also to get a vibe of the school campus. Other ways that I know students have connected are through emailing the admissions officers with questions, and sometimes even reaching out to a professor in a particular school. This is really important to show a school, especially in this day and age, that you are interested. If you have never even reached out to a school or attended anything, a school might not think that you're very interested, and that could affect the admissions decision.
Okay, so now that you've done your research and now you're ready to apply, the majority of schools are going to use the common application. There are some that don't, but we have found the majority do, and so that's why we're going through this application in particular. You start by going to www.commonapp.org, and when you get there, you're going to create your own account. Once your account is created, you will land on a home page and you'll have this dashboard here. And your dashboard, there'll be different tabs across the top. There'll be a listing of the colleges you've chosen to apply to, the actual Common App itself. There's a button just to look for schools, and then there's also financial aid resources. And what you'll do is you'll start by entering a college that you want to apply to, and just by typing in their name, you're going to find them and you're going to add them to your list. And under My Colleges, eventually you're going to see that list of schools that you intend on applying to. When you click on each school, you're going to see a variety of things that they require for you to submit that application. So you will need to fill out the Common App itself. You'll need to do your FERPA waiver. You'll need to also do some school-specific questions. And in that part is most likely where you'll find the question, you know, why do you want to apply here? They may ask if you are related to any alumni, and they may even have some additional extra questions there as well. So the Common App itself starts out with a profile, which again is going to be your basic demographic information. And so on the left there, you're going to see where it says profile, family, education, testing, and so on. And as you complete each section, it's going to give you a green check mark. And the nice thing about the Common App is that as you go through it, you can save it. So you don't have to fill out this entire thing in one sitting. You can start with your profile and get that done. Then move on to the family piece and get that done, and so on and so forth. The education portion, there's some information from the guidance office that we included in your folders. And so if you're looking for your class size, information about your GPA, that information is there in your folder, or you can contact us. So if you're wondering how to address COVID on your application, you know, we mentioned earlier that, you know, doing a college essay about your experience with COVID may not be the way to go. But on the Common Application, there is a place where you can speak to your experience with COVID and if it really impacted your educational or your home life, however, whatever it was for you. So it's under the writing section, and it actually indicates right there, it's very clear, this is the spot. And you can also choose not to. You do not have to share your experience with COVID. If you didn't feel like it impacted your academics, or if you didn't feel like it's a part of your application that you're going to need for your college admissions, you can also leave it blank and just select no. There's also the piece about teacher recommendations and FERPA. This is actually where you are going to request letters from your teachers. And so there's the recommender, the FERPA piece is all the privacy stuff. So FERPA is where, in this recommendations and FERPA tab, is where you will actually release your information from school to be sent to the schools that you are going to be applying to. So you're saying it's okay that we share your transcripts and that we share a letter of recommendation and so on and so forth. You have to sign your FERPA waiver before you can ask your teachers to do letters of recommendation. You have to do that before we are able to give a transcript to a school. And then you also want to waive your right to see your letters. There will be a question about that. And the reason they do that is so that colleges will actually count them in their holistic review of the application. They want to make sure they haven't been compromised in any way. So we said the majority of schools are on the Common Application, but some of them aren't. And in most cases, those that aren't, you'll apply directly to the institution. So some schools will give you the option to go directly through them. There are actually a couple that might even use something that's called the coalition application. Either way, if it's not using the Common App, you're going to need to submit a separate transcript request for these schools. And so how you go about doing that is we have a form, and sorry, I just kind of skipped ahead a little bit. But we have a form that will that you fill out. We have an electronic form. We also have a purple sheet for you to do that. And then we will automatically resend a updated transcript at the mid-semester and so on and so forth. So it won't go automatically because the guidance office will send an official transcript, automatic for Common App schools. If you have invited us as your school counselor, we will automatically send a transcript. You do not need to fill out a form. We will automatically send a school counselor report, which gives information about the school, as well as a school profile, which gives even more specific information about the school, our class sizes, the AP courses we offer, our average SAT scores, things like that. And then we will also automatically send the school counselor letter of recommendation. If you are applying before the end of the first semester in January, you will not have any grades from this year because we don't do quarters anymore. So what we are doing is we do a grade check on October 30th, so at the end of the month, and at that time we take a screenshot of where your grades are at. So for those of you who will be applying before January, keep that October 30th date in mind. So even though we don't have quarters, think of it as like the end of the quarter and make sure your grades are where you want them to be for your college admissions. Again, here's that transcript request form I was referring to, and all colleges will need your official transcript. So again, it's automatic for Common App schools, but for those that it's not, you need to fill out this transcript request form. We actually have it in our Google Classroom. We have it on our website, but then if you're a paper person, you can come right into the guidance office and we have a purple form that you can fill out. By filling that out, you authorize us to share your transcript with the schools that you are applying to. And one really important reminder, because we are asked this year after year, but when it comes to your SAT scores, ACT scores, any of those scores, you are responsible for sending your own test scores directly from the College Board to all of your schools. This is actually something that is direct from the schools. They do not want the scores to be sent from your high school. They need an official report from the College Board. So you will need to log in to your College Board account and get your scores from there. And then within there, you are able to select send my scores to my college, and then they're sent directly from there.
So this is a good time to just check in with everybody. How are you guys feeling right about now? Usually this is about the time where people start rolling their eyes, like, what did I just hear? There's a lot of information in this. And fortunately, as I mentioned before, the beautiful thing about this not being a live presentation is that you can go back and you can read sections. If you're having some questions that are going unanswered, if your counselor is not available, this is just going to be a great resource for you to check back in and make sure to keep that stress in check, because it's not worth stressing about, because we know stress doesn't help anything, right? And this is another thing, this is another stress reducer, but we got your back. Your counselors, we're here to help support you. We have this wonderful Google Classroom that has just been set up. So this is just another way that you can log in and basically find out every single thing you need to know and do in this college application process. So be sure to check out our Google Classroom. Lots of different info and resources. And then the Google Classwork tab, there are a couple different things in here that are going to be really important. One, we are having virtual senior meetings. So the nice thing is that we don't have to use our face mask to talk. We can just talk on the screen. And senior meetings are starting on Monday, September 21st, and they'll just basically run for as long as you guys need them. You'll be able to click on your counselor and the meeting schedule link, and you will be able to sign up for appointments. They're either in 30-minute lengths or 60-minute lengths, and it's not like you need to take up the whole time, but at least it saves a place in the calendar for you. And you don't have to have just one. You can have multiple appointments. The other thing, the other thing that page mentioned was that there's also a link to fill out that transcript request form. There it is. So we try to make that as easy as possible for you guys to navigate. That's where you go for that transcript request form. There we go. And so this is just an example of how to book the virtual appointments. So for each week, you'll see the days that we're available, and you'll see times. Choose a time that works for you. Most often, students are choosing their remote days where they're home to meet with us because it's just so much easier. You might have study hall time here when you're at school in the building too, and you can click on it. We can always do virtual appointments from wherever you are, but those days where you're not in the building tend to be the easiest ones. There are lots of books out there, articles, everything. So many good resources, so don't be shy. Some of these books are not just helpful, but just really reassuring, because it's kind of a scary process. You know, there's so much uncertainty, and we're in an uncertain part of our lives anyway, and then you're going on to who knows what. It's a little terrifying. So books are nice. And if you refer to just this page, this is a good one to always come back to just at the end. So our next steps, this is a good solid reminder page. Refer back to this when you feel lost or overwhelmed. So the next steps, make sure you join the college Google Classroom with your guidance counselors. Make sure you set up an appointment with your school counselor. So don't get frustrated if you go to sign up and there aren't any appointments until like the beginning of October. It's okay. There's plenty of time. If you find though that your stress is going up a little bit high because you can't get an appointment, just reach out to your counselor and they can set up another time to meet with you. We just have to balance the amount of senior meetings we can take with all the other work we do, which is why there are limited spaces. Look over the information in that college folder that we handed out to all of you last spring before we left school. Again, this presentation kind of shows everything you need to know, but if you like to look at paper, check in that folder because everything is there for you. Don't forget to research colleges, create your balanced list of schools to apply to, and then you're going to set up that Common App account, register for the SAT, only for the subject test if schools require them, and then ACT tests if you prefer that. And the next thing is keep checking your email. That's really important. I mean, we're having to do that anyway with teachers, with classes, with counselors. That's what we're doing. But it's also really important for colleges because they'll send you things. And if you don't see it, you might miss opportunities. So make sure to just regularly check your email, check Google Classroom for important information, and know that you're not alone. We're here with you. Now we can just breathe. Take a deep breath. That was a lot. That was a lot. And it's reassuring to know you're exactly where you need to be. You don't need to be anywhere different. You don't need to be doing anything different than what you've done so far. You just move one foot in front of the other and try not to compare yourselves. It's so easy for seniors to come in and say, oh my gosh, my friend they know exactly where they want to go to college. They know what they want to major in. They know what the career is. And that's okay. That's okay. Everybody's kind of on a different path, and just be okay with that. Don't compare. Just use friends as resources for info. I hope you all have enjoyed this recording for you. And again, keep coming back to it to reference it as often as you need. And we'll be in touch.